Welcome to this video lecture, Understanding Project Management, a Practical Guide, second edition, Chapter 13, Managing the HR Aspects of the Project. So checking our project lifecycle, we're making our way through the executing phase, and we are now ready to talk about managing the human resources or people aspects of the project. This is a constant presence in our projects, is that no matter what the projects are doing, they involve people doing the work, being involved, and so on. So our agenda includes the following topics. First, understanding power and influence, then managing the project team, followed by managing the stakeholder relationships, and then finally managing conflict. So there's a lot of different aspects to managing the HR aspects. So just an overview. It is important for the project managers to focus on the human resources or the people aspects of the project. It's extremely important. As mentioned, projects are performed by people, the project team, for people, the project stakeholders. The way they interact has a huge bearing on the project outcome. So the performance of those people directly impacts project success. So it is certainly incumbent on the project manager to pay a lot of attention to this. Project managers, another way to look at it is project managers do not normally perform the work of the project themselves. Sometimes they do some or some part of it, but in general, the work is being done by others. So it's important that the project manager is able to work with those others in order to have them work as effectively as possible. The other aspect is project managers often lack the positional power that other managers possess. Team members, and certainly other stakeholders, do not work directly, do not report to the project manager. So therefore, they don't have this positional authority that can be useful. Therefore, the use of influence is very important, and this is why it's a key topic that we're going to look at. So, under understanding power and influence, power is the ability. The definition of power is the ability to influence others to change their attitude or behavior. And it's based on, there are a number of sources of power that are listed here. There is the expertise or the perceived expertise of the leader. There's something called referent power, which is it indicates the amount that followers or team members or others would like to be associated with that leader. Often it is associated with charisma, with interpersonal skills, with a presence that is there. That leadership quality is overall referred to as referent power. There's legitimate power. That's the positional power that we referred to before, which is the based on your job title. Your position within the organization provides you with what's called legitimate power. There is reward power, the ability of the individual, the manager or the leader, to be able to reward others through salary or bonuses or other even non-financial rewards. And finally, there's coercive power, which is often the opposite of reward. It is the ability for that manager or leader to be able to punish others, to be able to suspend or provide penalties to others is known as coercive power. So, key idea, as project managers usually have limited legitimate power. That's what was said previously. What sources of power should the project manager strive to use? And that is a key question that should be looked at. Every project manager should think about this, that yes, you don't necessarily have a lot or any legitimate power. And so what is your source of power? How are you going to influence others to change their attitude or behavior? Um, Now, sometimes those new to project management and management in general will start to rely on the easier ones, so to speak, rewarding and coercive power. Be able to reward people through additional salary or bonuses or gift certificates or things like that, or coercive. They will penalize. Um, they will do things to express displeasure and use coercive methods. And those are, there are certainly times when those are things that may be appropriate in certain situations. The power sources of expertise and referent are the ones that project managers should strive to develop and rely on. They are not limited. You can never stop learning, become perceived as having more expertise. And referent is another one, is how you interact with people, your leadership, communication, interpersonal skills. These are power bases that you should constantly be developing and honing your skill in this area. So those are the first, and those are the top two. Now, this leads us to influence. But remember, the topic is power and influence. Influence is the exercise of power to bring about change. Without influence, power would just be we have this this ability, but it then leads to the ability to influence. So it's that exercise of power. So it's the more actionable part. And there are various methods that may be used to influence others. Now, certainly the greater your source of power, the more apt you are to be able to influence. So the two go hand in hand. The textbook gives a fairly complete or a fuller description of the influencing methods or methods of influence. But just to list a few, there is engaging others in rational explanations. And you can see where, if you have expertise power, you'll certainly be able to convince people more effectively. If you have referent power, you're probably going to be able to convince people through rational explanations. Another influencing technique is inspiring others. Another is your interpersonal skills. And so on. There's a few others involving others in planning and demonstrating the benefits of cooperation. So recommended to look into that more on pages 187 and 188 of the textbook. But these are the methods that, if you have developed your sources of power, you will be more apt to be able to influence others in those certain techniques that we talked about. How does the power enhance the ability to influence? Well, that's been answered somewhat in the previous in this discussion, is that because of your enhanced power, it is more likely that your rational explanation will be influential. If you have a high degree of referent power, you'll be more likely to be able to inspire others. Think of people that inspire us, right? They normally have a great deal of referent power, and so on. So definitely the power and influence go hand in hand. So project managers should be continually considering and developing their sources of power in order to increase their ability to influence others. You should be constantly thinking about this as, what can I do to increase my level of expertise? What can I do to be that people will want to be associated and work with me, my referent power, and so on. So these are things that you should be constantly working upon. Now, let's go to our video of the ongoing case study project, and we'll see how influence or power and influence affects the case study project.
Periodically, Sophie reflects on her work experience prior to becoming a project manager. Her background is in business communications, and her first job at Deco Productions was as a communications specialist. Once she became a project manager, she assumed that because of her position, she could just tell people what to do and they would do it. However, because her team members didn't report directly to her, they reported to other managers in the organization, she quickly realized that she lacked this type of positional power. She shudders when she thinks of some of her early projects. On one project, she set up a series of deadlines and pointed out team members who didn't meet the deadline in the weekly team meeting. She quickly found that her team members felt they were being publicly shamed in front of their teammates and were being punished for delays that were often beyond their control. Instead of motivating the team, they were becoming hostile to her. On another project, she decided to give out small bonuses and gift certificates whenever team members achieved something exceptional. But then she found that team members started to expect a bonus and were demotivated if they didn't receive it. In addition, she exceeded her discretionary budget halfway through the project. Over time, she came to realize that she shouldn't rely on the use of rewards or disciplinary actions to influence her team. Instead, she found that her team would be much more likely to perform effectively if she gained their confidence and respect. She now focuses on activities such as interacting with each team member on a personal level, involving team members in the decision-making process, being flexible and open to new ideas, including admitting when she is wrong, clearly communicating the reasons for project decisions and actions. The results of her efforts have been positive. Team members see her not only as a competent project manager, but also as a reasonable and fair person. Sophie learned the hard way how important power and influence can be when managing people. She keeps these strategies in mind as she completes her current project.
Okay, so we saw in that video Sophie's journey with regard to power and influence. So, and many project managers complete this journey or are on this journey, is moving from over-reliance on the limited legitimate power they may have, and often dabbling in over-reliance and coercive and reward power, and quickly realizing that that runs out over time. And over time, they begin to develop referent and expertise power, and with hopefully greater success if focus is put there, and if those power sources are developed. So key idea, project managers should develop their sources of power in order to increase their effective use of influence during the project. Okay, our next topic is managing the project team's activities. So we're first going to go to our video to see how this is done within the case study project. Sophie studies the project schedule, reviewing which team members are assigned to each project activity. During a recent team meeting, the schedule was distributed to all team members to ensure that everyone was aware of their own activities. However, this isn't the end of Sophie's involvement. She considers each of her team members and how she should manage them. The communication specialist. The company has recently hired Sarah, and while she's eager to learn, she's also inexperienced. Sophie will work very closely with her, helping her draft a daily to-do list and encouraging her to ask questions as they arise. The marketing specialist. Maddie has been in her current position for over a year and is becoming comfortable in her role. Sophie makes a mental note to drop by to see her every few days to provide support as needed. The graphic designer. Chris has extensive experience. Unless he asks a question or raises an issue,
Sophie does not need to spend additional time with him. She continues this process with each of the remaining team members. She feels confident about her planned interaction with each team member, as she'll be able to provide the right amount of time and support for their needs.
Okay, so in this video, we saw what the project manager, Sophie, was doing in the area of managing the project team's activities. So an important aspect of the project manager role is to manage the performance of team members. It's not just enough to assign them tasks on a Gantt chart, but to be involved in their performance of those roles. And the question is, and we saw this on the video, is what is the appropriate management style for each level of team member expertise? And this is based on an idea that management styles should not necessarily be consistent for all team members, but it should vary depending upon the expertise level of the team member. So, for example, and this was demonstrated in the video, for a low level of expertise, somebody that's assessed at low, a directive approach is appropriate, in that they need direction. They don't let them kind of fumble around trying to find. That's frustrating for someone at that point. At that point, they're looking for direction. For someone who's at sort of the medium level or medium low, as described in the textbook, a coaching method, a coaching management style where you're there to not to tell them every single thing, but to provide them active level of coaching of what they should do, where they should go, some tips and so on. As for team members that either develop higher level of expertise, or for those team members that are already there, a supportive method, which is less active than coaching, but there to support them if they run into problems, or you're there if needed. That's support. That's providing a supporting. And finally, the highest level of expertise, somebody that is at the top of their game, that is a delegating, is a just give them what they need to do and basically get out of the way. That's what the inappropriate management style is for somebody with a high level of expertise. Now, obviously, people are not necessarily, completely in one of these four categories. You can be kind of in the middle, but it gives you a rough idea of the type of management style. And in fact, if you get it incorrect, it can be frustrating. For example, if you delegate to a low-level expertise person, they'll be lost. They won't know what to do, and they'll probably fail at what they're doing. And then instead of blaming the team member, it really should be blaming the manager for having that type of management style. On the other hand, or the other extreme is if you try to be directive with a high-level expertise team member, that's going to frustrate them. People with high level of expertise do not like to be micromanaged. They're good at what they do. They know how to do it, and there's no benefit. In fact, it's counterproductive to be directive with them. So this is where you really have to be able to read people and to understand where they are. So key idea, the project manager should vary their management style according to their perceived expertise level of each team member. And you have to pay attention. So our next step is to look at building the team members, the project team's capabilities. That's another role of the project manager in terms of working with the people or HR resources on the project. So we'll watch this one.
As she organizes her project team, Sophie's thoughts turn to the performance of her team. She knows that the success of the project is tied to how well her team members performs individually and as a group. Deco Productions supports the team members' ongoing skills training by sending employees to take courses as needed. Sophie also knows that on-the-job training takes place during her projects, and she allots time for this within her projects. While these training opportunities will improve individual performance, Sophie knows that the group also needs to perform effectively as a team. She recalls one of her projects from a couple of years ago, when it looked like she had a very strong team. Each person assigned to her project was competent in their respective fields. However, once the project was underway, Sophie realized that something was wrong. The team seemed to act more like a group of strangers, and the reduced communication and cooperation between them began to negatively affect the project. She also found that the team became consumed by the amount of work required and the project issues, creating a dark cloud over the project. The end result was a failed project, with many of the team members blaming each other for the failure. For the DecoCam project, a number of the team members do not know each other well, so there is a chance that history could repeat itself. Sophie plans to gather her team at a local restaurant and pay for the first couple of appetizers. It will serve as an informal project kickoff and help the team members to get to know each other outside of the day-to-day work. Additionally, Sophie likes to begin her team meetings with humorous stories about the latest thing that her 4-year-old daughter said, or some unlikely situation that occurred during a family outing. Often, other team members share their own stories as well. This tends to bring the team closer together, lightens the mood, and creates a positive environment in which the team can tackle the challenges in front of them. Sophie hopes these types of team-building activities will help her avoid the pitfalls of the previous project.
Okay, so again, we saw in this video some various techniques taking place for building the project team's capabilities. So in addition to managing the project team's activities, as we saw previously, the project manager also has a building role of building their capabilities. And this is really important because the greater the capabilities of the project team, the more effective the results of the project, the greater the results will be. And this is part of a manager's role. So we saw a number of specific approaches that were used there for team building. We saw training in that video. So we saw team building that was taking place, just getting people outside of the work environment and letting them talk and so on. And there was just the general building of the overall positive environment are ways. There was also mention of on-the-job mentoring and so on. And so there's many ways to consider. And the textbook, again, provides a fuller description of this. So key idea, the project manager should strive to build the capabilities of the project team. So the next subject is now managing the stakeholder relationships. So again, let's go to the video and we'll see what the project team and Sophie does in this area.
It's the end of a long week and the pace of the project is increasing significantly. At this point, it can be easy to get swept up into the urgent daily activities of the project. Even though she is busy, Sophie spends a few minutes each week considering her ongoing relationship with the project stakeholders. She pulls up the stakeholder engagement plan on her laptop to review her planned actions with each stakeholder. The plan has been updated numerous times throughout the project as Sophie has gained a greater understanding of the project and its stakeholders. Looking at the plan, she jots down a couple of new entries on her daily to-do list. She hasn't dropped by to see Casey lately, so she adds this to the list. She also realizes that there have been a few changes to her schedule, and she should send a quick update to the other DecoCam project managers. They always appreciate these extra updates that she sends. After a few additional updates to the stakeholder engagement plan, she saves the file and closes her laptop. Looking at her to-do list, she decides to head to Casey's office first.
Okay, so this video demonstrated another important area is the consideration of the project stakeholders and managing the stakeholder relationships. So in addition to the project team, the project manager also interacts frequently with various stakeholders, both inside the project sponsor, and so on, and outside, other managers, possible customers. So lots to do in this area. The stakeholder engagement plan is the guide. And remember, that is a plan that was created in the planning phase. Well, it's constantly updated and referred to and so on. And it helps remind the project manager about how to actively manage these relationships. That's what was contained in the stakeholder engagement plan. And as with project team members, the use of power and influence is very, very important. Arguably the amount of positional power the project manager has with other stakeholders is even less than with the project team. So certainly the use of power and influence is extremely important. So key idea, the project manager should continually engage with the project stakeholders as defined in the stakeholder engagement plan. This brings us to our final topic, managing conflict. A goal of creating something unique in a finite period of time with a limited budget can lead to conflict. This is not uncommon, that it is a pressure-filled environment often in projects. Now, some level of conflict can be productive for a team. That is, if there is no conflict, then team members may not be adequately engaged. If we never have disagreements, if no one ever opposes someone's idea, that isn't necessarily, and that's probably a really big sign that there's something wrong with the way your team is interacting, and that should be looked into. So, but this is positive, good level of disagreements. Productive disagreements is good. However, excessive conflict is counterproductive. There is a line that we go over where we get hurt feelings and we get people being disparaged and anger and so on. That's not good within a project. So it's somewhere in the middle that we're trying to foster. Is some disagreement, everyone's has a say, everyone's idea. There's a healthy discussions of things, but not counterproductive conflict. That's what we're trying to get. Therefore, an effective conflict management approach is needed. So that's where we have a conflict management model, and that's what we're going to look at today. There are two characteristics of the conflict that are important in this conflict management model and should always be considered whenever there's a conflict. The importance of the situation. What is causing the conflict, and how important is it to you? Is it extremely important, level 1 type of importance, or is it trivial? There's anything in between. There's a wide range of levels of importance of the sources of conflict. And then the other dimension, the other characteristic, is the importance of the relationship with the other person or people involved in the conflict. Is how important is that relationship? Is it an ongoing relationship that you need or should maintain? Or is it something where it's a more transactional relationship that you do not need to maintain a relationship and a positive relationship with? So those are things that need to be considered. Once these characteristics have been determined, a suitable conflict management approach may be used. And the following video, again, back to our DecoCam project team, we're going to see the conflict management model in play. So we're going to see each of the different approaches. So we'll watch this together.
One of the things that Sophie didn't realize when she became a project manager was the number of disagreements that would occur. At times, by the end of the week, she feels like a referee. But over time, by analyzing the characteristics of each new conflict, she's having more success with conflict management. Just this week, there were 2 potential conflicts with her project sponsor. Arun is a key stakeholder of the project, and maintaining a positive relationship with him is very important. The first conflict arose because Arun felt strongly that the project should be completed 1 week earlier, so that the marketing team would be able to create a better marketing plan for the DecoCam version 4 project. Sophie saw this as a very significant change that could affect the budget of the project and add significant risk as well. To address this conflict, she booked a meeting with Arun where they explored each of their concerns and searched for possible solutions. In the end, they settled on a new approach. The original project due date will be maintained, but Sophie will meet with the marketing team 1 week before this due date to present all of the product launch deliverables. By using a collaborative approach, both Sophie and Arun were satisfied with the resolution. The second conflict has to do with the weekly status report. As part of the communication management plan, Arun receives a weekly status report sent as an electronic file attached to an email. Arun recently requested that Sophie also sends him a printed copy of the report. Sophie sighed when she received the request, as this is just one more thing she would need to do each week. In addition, the company policy has been to reduce paper use wherever possible. However, when she thinks about it, this issue really isn't important to her, and apparently it's important to Arun. Therefore, she accommodates the request by adding this extra step to her weekly processes. Also during the week, Sophie ran into a situation with her project team. During a team meeting, Sarah and Eli said that rather than recording the number of hours that they worked on the project on a daily basis, they would prefer to estimate their hours at the end of the project. Sophie explained why having current information on a regular basis is useful to her effective management of the project. This satisfied Sarah, but Eli digs in and states that he still doesn't want to record his hours during the project. Given the high importance of timely project information, and that this is a company policy that cannot be changed, Sophie takes a directing approach and lets Eli know that while she understands his concerns, it must be done. A day later, one of the employees from the finance department drops by her office. It seems that her team was very loud as they celebrated the completion of a key milestone earlier in the week. She asked Sophie to speak to her team to make sure they are quiet next time. Sophie recalls that she was probably laughing the loudest at the meeting. Overall, she feels that this issue is somewhat trivial since it was a very brief period of celebrating and they didn't exceed the normal noise levels in the office. She also doesn't know the employee and probably won't have any further interactions with her. She thanks the employee for the feedback, but politely indicates that she won't be pursuing this further. By avoiding any further discussion, she limits the time spent on this issue. She doesn't expect to hear any more about it. And finally, while meeting with the project managers of the other DecoCam version 4 projects, 2 of the project managers asked if the project status report could be sent to them by 8 a.m. on Thursdays rather than by noon. They would like more time to prepare for the Friday meeting. This concerns Sophie as she usually arrives to the office at 8:30 a.m. after dropping her daughter off at daycare. She feels that it's not an overly important issue, though she knows that maintaining a good relationship with the other project managers is important. They reach a compromise that the project status report will be sent by 10 a.m. By the end of the week, Sophie feels she effectively managed each of the conflicts that came up. She is sure, though, that there will be more problems to address next week.
Okay, so in that video, we saw the conflict management model in action. We saw various situations, and each were addressed by the approaches that Sophie was taking using the model. So again, this is the idea of what you do, that for each conflict that comes up, think about the importance of the situation, the importance of the relationship. And this is what you should do is try to figure out where it fits in those four, or is it in the middle? Is it in the medium? Now, be careful not to always make everything in the middle. Try to, it's important to collaborate when you need to, avoid when you need to, compromise when you need to, and so on. So this is a key thing to start analyzing, every time something comes up, where does it fit in this model? That's a key thing. So the project manager should assess and manage conflict between project stakeholders to ensure the effective execution of the project. A couple of new terms: influence and power. Again, you can always check the key terminology section. A few references for images in this lecture, and that is the end of this topic.